Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and also thank you so much for all of the comments on my last video that I made painting in my Watercolor With Me in the Jungle book. In that video, I explained some of the issues that I had with creating the book and the aftermath of the reviews afterwards, and I just explained everything that I probably should have explained when the book was released. If you missed that video, please go and watch it or even just listen to it, because it does contain some pretty important information if you were thinking of buying the book and were maybe turned off by some of the reviews you may have read. So yeah, I just wanted to thank those of you who gave me a little bit more encouragement and kind of understood where I was coming from. That really does mean a lot to me. I was super down about the book, but I'm back, and I wanted to show you another project of me working directly in the book so that you can see how the paint performs and the paper performs and just how the projects are completed. A lot of us are more visual learners, I understand that, so I definitely wanted to just show you my techniques instead of you having to read all of the words on the page. Or perhaps if you do have the book, just watching these videos will help make things make sense. One other thing that I did want to mention that I find kind of funny as well, and I'm not going to make all these videos about me complaining about reviews and stuff like that. That's not my intention at all. I'm kind of over it at this point. I do feel good about what I've put out there, but something that I just find kind of funny is that some of the comments and reviews I have received have asked like where the rest of the jungle animals are and stuff like that, and they're naming things like lions and zebras and basically the types of animals you might think of when you think of like a movie like The Lion King or something, right? Because it does have a jungle in the movie, you kind of associate that with jungle animals. Well, let me tell you guys, I had a huge list of animals ready to paint for this book, but like all of my books, I do my research like as I'm doing each project, and as I'm kind of coming up with the idea, I research the animal first, and that's why in the book you'll find like little bits of facts and information about the subject that you're about to paint. So I did have a whole bunch of these other animals on my list, and then I come to find out that they're not jungle animals. They're not jungle animals at all. Lions don't live in the jungle. Zebras don't live in the jungle. They live in grasslands. They live in like safari type things. When you go to the zoo, you see them in like fields and safari type settings. They're not jungle animals, so I couldn't include them. And I wasn't going to confuse people by adding animals that don't actually live in the jungle. So that is why you see a bunch of other colorful objects like fruits that grow there and stuff like that. And also, my books aren't meant to be specifically animals. They're meant to be different things you'd find in different settings. So before you question why something maybe wasn't included, maybe do a little Google search first and just ask where an animal lives. I had to do that with every single animal in the book, so hopefully that kind of explains where I'm coming from on that as well. A lot of the living things in the jungle, a ton of them are actually birds, and I thought about putting more birds in the book, but I didn't want it to be like a complete bird book. I also tried not to really duplicate too many things that are in the other books, like butterflies, for example. I do have a butterfly in the forest book. So for this project, I wanted to create one that was different than the monarch that is in the forest book. I really liked the blue hues. That's why I included it, because it's nice and bright and it just has that jungle vibe to it. Anyways, so back to the painting. You can see how I'm working the paint with my brush. I am using my Wonder Forest watercolor brushes, and you guys will be happy to learn that I am working on a bunch of different new products this year. Another one of them being a set of brushes, completely different brushes from these ones now. Also a couple other paper things, paint things, so you'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so you should have probably seen when I was laying down the blue colors in this piece that I was using the tip of the brush to kind of manipulate the paint a little bit. Basically, when you have a lighter weight watercolor paper, and this is just in general and not just like in the book, because the book is a lighter weight paper. If it was a thicker paper, obviously the cost would have increased even more. The book would have been double the size and blah, blah, blah. When you are using sort of a thinner watercolor paper and one that has a bit of a texture like this one does, you can use the tip of your brush to manipulate the paint a little bit and kind of pull it out, brush it around really gently on the paper. You don't want to keep on adding water and wetness to a paper of this thickness, because two things are going to happen. The first thing is you're going to get puddles of water, which you probably all know, and that's going to cause blooming, and it's going to make the paper become transparent because there's just way too much water. It may seep through to the page behind it. And the other thing is going to be the texture. Some of the paint might settle in the texture of the paper. This is not a hot pressed paper, which, if you don't know, hot pressed is a really smooth surface, and cold pressed has that bit of texture to it, kind of that classic watercolor texture. And all cold pressed papers, well, the majority of them do have a slightly different texture to them. So while this is the exact same paper that we used in the other books, the texture might be slightly different, but it's the same paper, if that makes any sense. It's just the way that it's pressed when it's made. So to avoid having your paint pigment sort of collect in the crevices and texture of the paper, you're gonna want to continue like moving it around and working with it until it's not so damp. Hopefully that makes sense. You basically don't want it to dry in little like micro puddles almost, like in the texture. Does that make sense? I have seen some pictures of buyers working in the book, and this has happened to them where they've noticed, like, they call them, I guess, like dots on the paper, and that's not exactly the paper's fault completely. It is just because you need to kind of work the paint a little bit more. You can see right now, like, I'm working in the book, I'm not having these issues. So hopefully just by watching these videos that I put out, you'll be able to see different techniques and how I work the paint, because ultimately I want you guys to enjoy painting in these books. And I totally understand that if something doesn't turn out the way that maybe mine looks in this sample, it's not fun. And you might feel a little disappointed, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just trying to give you my best tips and my best demonstration, I suppose, so that you can enjoy it. And hopefully you can take some of these tips and little bits from my demonstrations and apply it to your other paintings as well. Also, I find it really cool to see people tagging me on Instagram of their kids working in these books, and instead of paint, some of them are actually using like pencil crayons and markers and stuff, and the results have been awesome. So, I mean, you can use multimedia, and I think that's especially nice for kids because they can still follow along with the instructions. It'll just be slightly different, but they can also use their creativity and imagination and use like a different medium like pencil crayons and have a really cool result. Also, if you guys were looking for a list of all the products that I use in the book, or where to buy them, what to use, I do have a section on my Amazon shop, which I'm going to link below. It basically includes every single product, every color that I used in this In the Jungle book. So that is linked below. I'm also linking my brushes below. And if you want to see some of the palettes, the porcelain handmade palettes that I have left, there are a couple still available, and those are also in my shop. So now that we're coming to the end of the video, I would love to know from you guys which project you want to see me paint next. This can be a project from my current book, my past books, any projects that you want to see me do in real time so that you can maybe get a feel for how they're done, let me know in the comments. Once again, I hope that this video helped you guys see how the paintings can be done. If you want to check out the books, again, link in description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video and on my Instagram page at Wonderforest.